our community, our hometown. This is Kearney Live on 102.7 FM, our hometown radio station. Kearney Live is presented by Kearney Trust, 310 West 92 Highway in Kearney, 816-628-6666. And now here's the hosts of Kearney Live, Mike Davis and Jim Dickerson.
Yeah, that's it. That's that live studio audience. You're with us live on what show? Kearney Live. That's where we are. I'm your host, Mike Davis, along with my good friend and co-host, Jim Dickerson. Jim, good to see you.
It's good to be here.
And I also want to mention that Brian Watts is in studio because certainly we could not do this without Brian Watts. He is the producer, engineer. Right, exactly. Yeah, he's hardest working man in Kearney, that much I know. He's at least, I know he's the hardest working man at the radio station because neither Jim nor I do anything.
That's true.
So he's got his microphone on, too. Well done. Well, good timing on that. So we've got a couple of really interesting guests today. And this isn't political, believe it or not. We've had so many political guests on here, which is a great thing and provides a lot of helpful information for the voters of Kearney and Clay County.
And congratulations to the winners.
No doubt about that, because Jim, tell everybody about what happens when you're on this show if you're in politics.
Yeah, so we're still running at 100%. The people who've been on this show, anyway, all the winners have all been on the show, or if they've won, they came on the show or something like that. I can't remember what it is.
Which makes it sound even more fishy.
But, the weird thing was there was the the unusual thing that happened in with John Carpenter's race in the Western District Commissioner, and if you watched it on KPGZ News, which we'll talk about in just a second, he originally lost that race, and then he noticed that he didn't get any votes in several precincts. So they did a recount, found out there was a tabulation error, something to do with the computers or something like that.
Just not sound...
the funny thing is, in today's environment, that's kind of weird that would happen because everybody's so sensitive about it anyway.
I was going to say, it doesn't sound plausible, but here in Clay County, I had to shift over to this is really what happened. But, man, I'm telling you, if this happens in the general election, I am going to be upset.
Well, and they've already,
among others.
They've already said that there is a better than, I think it's 60% chance right now that we will not know in the general election who's won, especially on the presidential side, that night. It's going to be several days before we find out.
I think I stayed up till 2 o'clock in 2016, 2 a.m.
This is going to be a mess. Right. But I digress.
No, you didn't. That was good information that I asked you about, Jim. Thank you very much. But I do want to mention that we have 2 linemen in here and I'm not talking about football. These are our linemen from Platte-Clay Electric Cooperative. And our first guest with Platte-Clay Electric is Brad Mick. Brad, just want to say welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It is nice having you here. We're going to talk about a service project that you all worked on. It was called Missouri on a Mission, Bringing Electricity to Guatemala, which is a really neat and interesting story. And Brad is going to tell us a little bit about his experience with it early on in the beginning parts of the show. And in the second segment, we'll bring on Seth Henry. Seth Henry is a lineman as well. Is that right, Seth? Are you over there sitting in the corner shaking his head? Yes, I got that right. And we will talk a little bit further about his experiences with the culture and bringing electricity to a third world country, which I think is a fascinating project. In any event, yes, Jim, we are back to business here. One of the things I want to ask you, I think most of our listeners and audience know that Jim is an airline pilot, in addition to being a terrific talent here on the radio station. But I'm curious because you have not been flying, and with the COVID and so forth, and all of a sudden you're back and you are out flying. I'm curious, what was that experience like, and what are you seeing out there around at airports here in the United States of America?
Well, it was kind of funny because I forgot where the plane was and what it looks like. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, so it's a good time to clear up some things as it relates to flying, because I know a lot of people have questions about it. The biggest issue we have right now, the numbers are starting to go back up. But the biggest issue that we have as it relates to people that are traveling is there's nowhere to go. Because once you get there, all your places that, you used to go for vacation and all that are closed or are real restricted on how you can get there. We have a lot of problems with that as traveling crew because when we get to certain hotels, everything's closed. There's nothing to do. So you go to your room and that's all you've got. You got nothing else.
Yeah.
So that part's not good. The airports were actually pretty busy yesterday when I came back. And
where did you go, Jim?
I started out in Philadelphia, then we went down to Greensboro, went over to Charlotte, and then was back here. And that was over a course of a few days. But the other thing is, so a lot of people, and I'll knock this out real quick, a lot of people ask, is it safe to fly or is it safe, the air quality and all that? So, some of the airlines have this thing with, the seating, and they try not to seat in the middle rows and all that sort of thing. The reality is you're sitting in a tube. So personally, I don't know that taking out the middle rows makes a whole lot of difference. What I really think happens, honestly, because you hear a lot of people complain about it, people don't want people sitting next to them a year ago. I mean, COVID has nothing to do with it. They always want, more leg room and all that.
And don't lean your seat back in front of me. Just don't do it. Just save it.
The reality is people, they want first-class seats without paying for first-class seats. That was pre-COVID. So the thing to keep in mind when you're flying is, number one, even pre-COVID, they disinfect these planes like nobody's business. They try to keep them clean.
Right.
The second thing is, do you know where the dirtiest air we get is?
I'm afraid to ask.
It's when we're sitting on the ground at the gate.
Well, I'll buy that.
Because the doors are all open,
right,
and air's all coming in from outside and
right,
everything else.
You're smelling jet exhaust.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but when we're flying, the HEPA filters on those things are amazing, and they change them all the time, and this is even pre-COVID, so this is nothing new. The second thing is you're at 35, 37, 40,000 feet. The air up there, pretty clean. Probably the cleanest air you're going to get. And we constantly circulate it through the airplane. So that's probably one of your, if you worry about going to Target or versus getting on an airplane, airplane's your best bet.
Choose the airplane.
Yeah, you're going to be there. So
they don't have as many products on the airplane.
If you have to travel and you're going to go by airplane, I would tell you have no worries whatsoever.
There you go.
None whatsoever. Your biggest issue with air travel right now is going to be, what am I going to do when I get where I'm going? So if I want to go to Disney World, is Disney World open? Or do they allow people in, or whatever the case may be?
Right.
And this changes by the day as more things start to open up. I heard about football. What is it? Pac-10?
Big Ten.
Or Big Ten.
Right.
And I'm hoping the SEC doesn't fall in line with that, but
let's just forge ahead. Everybody be safe. Let's deal with what we got in front of us. Anyway, I appreciate that report, Jim.
Bottom line, airline travel, perfectly safe.
Right.
Probably your air is cleaner there than almost anywhere else.
There you go.
Honestly, they do have the mask requirement. You got to wear your mask. I think every airline has that. You got to have the mask on when you're on board. But it's perfectly safe, and the air's good. Planes are clean, and there you go.
So get flying.
Yep, go fly somewhere.
There you go. Buy a ticket, go somewhere, go see your grandma. There you go. Why is that funny?
Unless she lives down the street.
That's right. Then walk down. Yeah, put your mask on. All right, let's get this thing kicked off here. I think let's get back here with Brad Mick. Brad, again, welcome to the show. So glad to have you here. And I mentioned before, you're a lineman with Platte-Clay Electric. I could say PCEC, and that's easier. I'm going to say Platte-Clay Electric. I think I can get that done. When did you get started as a lineman, and how did you get involved in that as a career?
Right out of line school. Started that right out of high school.
So
19 years of age.
All right. So, I mean, and here you are, a high school graduate, and you said, you know what, I think this is something I'd like to do, or did you just say, I don't know what I'm going to do, or is that how it started?
Just kind of where it took me.
Yeah, and so how did you know to go to lineman school?
I had some mentors, family friends that were in the business, and they kind of got me started.
And I'm going to give away your age, but how long have you been doing this?
11 years.
Wow. All right. So it must be something that you enjoy.
Yep.
No doubt about it. There are certainly you're outside quite a bit, and more so than not, I would imagine.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, what are some of the things that you're involved in that are memorable when you think about the work that you've done over the last 11 years with Platte-Clay Electric?
Just storms, local storms, going out of town on storms. Of course, this project that we just did, pretty big.
Right, no doubt about it. And getting to this project, I mentioned it's called Missouri on a Mission. I have a...
Before we go to Missouri on a Mission, I have a question.
Oh, here we go. We've already started the derailment. Go ahead, Jim.
So you were talking about storms for a minute. When you guys go up on the lines and you start, I mean... I get worried if I'm going to change a light bulb.
Exactly.
And you guys are crawling up on these lines and then touching these. Well, I wouldn't, it's kind of like when they go, all right, I turned the power off, and you're at home and you're going to touch the little wire.
Here's
and
the
I'm
wrong
scared
breaker.
I'm scared to death to do that. Even though, I could shut the power off in the entire house and I still don't want to touch it. How do you feel confident about what's going on when you're going to, do you call back and go, hey, Roy, shut off grid 6, and you hope he's right?
There's procedures in place that we have visual opens and test and ground and make sure everything's safe. It's not just as easy as flipping it off and going to work.
And then during a storm makes it seem a little bit worse. I mean, sure. I wouldn't want to go up there and start grabbing stuff and everything else. So,
yep.
I know we do this all the time, and yet I see people do it. So what's your advice for people when there's a storm and there's lines laying in the street? Just drive right on over them?
No, stay away from them.
Yeah. Isn't it sad that we have to tell people that? Because it happens. I used to see it more often than I do now, but you see people drive right over it, and I'm like, not smart.
Well, I think that's one of the things that Platte-Clay Electric does a really nice job of educating the public on things just like that. I know
sure.
We've had Garrett Porman on the show with us before. We've talked about that, and Jennifer's been on here as well, and we talk about the safety aspect of it. That you're right, Jim. It seems like you would just common sense would say don't go anywhere near that thing.
But it happens every year.
I know.
People drive right over it and all that sort of thing.
Well, let's get back to this, and a good question, by the way.
Thank you, though. I was curious because I wouldn't want to do it.
Right.
Hats off to you. Good luck with that.
And obviously, you've been doing it for 11 years, so it makes sense that you're doing it right. I'm pretty sure they won't keep you around if you do it wrong. You may not even be around to be kept around it, and I think you know what I mean. They call this Missouri on a Mission. We're visiting today. We've got Brad Mick in here today from Platte-Clay Electric Cooperative, and it is a program in which you brought electricity to Guatemala. Now, that is... there's no way to sort of overstate that. I mean, we're talking about a third world country here that had no power grid where you were. Is that the way it started? You started from square one?
Yeah, we brought power from another village that was roughly 2.25 miles away, and then started their small grid in their village. Right,
and so this village had no electricity.
Other than a solar panel or two or a generator.
Okay.
That's all they had.
Interesting. How did this program get started, and was this something that Platte-Clay Electric Cooperative does on a yearly basis, or was this the first time, or what?
They've done it several years in a row now.
Okay.
It's based through the NRECA,
I see
Missouri
that. statewide. Yeah, I see that on the NRECA, right? And that's an international program.
And every once in a while, Missouri's chosen as a state to pull some guys together and go on one of these projects.
Yeah, it says started in 1962 and has brought power to 110 million people. That's a lot. 2 billion people still live without electricity, which is just, in our technical day and age, it's hard to imagine. we're upset if we don't have Wi-Fi at a campground.
For sure.
You know, I mean, I'm serious. I just got back from vacation. I'm one of those people.
That's true.
I like Wi-Fi.
We were trying to get a hold of Mike, and he's like, I don't have a signal up here. I'm like, what do you mean? This is not acceptable.
I know it. I know it.
Going back before we talk about how you got power, how did you get down there? How long did it take to get down there?
We took our time going into the village. Of course, the roads are pretty rough once you get, out of the bigger cities. But we were parts of 2.5 days going for travel into the village.
And then where do you stay? Because I'm thinking they don't have a Hyatt right there.
No Hyatt. They had a community center. It was a block built metal roof building, and we just set up shop. And
were there other linemen from other companies then?
Yep. Yep.
So you got to meet a lot of people from around the country that are doing
around
the
the
same.
state.
Oh, I see. Okay.
All state of Missouri guys.
Right. Okay.
So what?
Go ahead, Jim.
What do you eat?
The NRECA sent 2 guys down to cook for us. They brought in all the food with them. The villagers actually made homemade tortillas for us every day. We had them 3 times a day.
Nice.
They were very good.
No doubt. I think I could I could make a living on that. Yeah.
We didn't go hungry, but it was bland, rice and beans, a little bit of protein.
What was the culture like as you met these people? What was your first encounter with them, and how did you sort of respond to them, and how did they respond to you?
So we first got in the village on the first day. The elders of the village come and greeted us, and we had 3 different interpreters that spoke English and Spanish. Mm-hmm. And most of the elders in the village spoke Spanish, but they also spoke Ashil, which is the village language.
Oh, wow.
And with our interpreters, we could speak with them pretty well, get a point across. But anything outside of that, and some of the kids did speak a little bit of English, but some of the ladies and the people that did dishes and swept and cleaned for us, you just couldn't really talk with them much because they didn't know Spanish, and our interpreters, they had to go get somebody else.
But you could sort of acknowledge each other.
Oh, for sure.
As you were there.
For sure. Oh, yeah. Hand signals go a long way.
Yeah, and a smile.
Yep.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. As you were watching this, you're a witness of this, a third world nation, and people who are living in such a manner that we can barely imagine. What were some of the thoughts that went through your mind as you saw this lifestyle unfold in front of you?
Yeah, it's just definitely a change. You talk about the people not having anything; they didn't know any different, and I mean, I feel like they were happy. Mm-hmm. I mean, they know there's stuff out there that they could use and make their lives better, but they just went along with what they had, and just what they did. Right.
They have the essential food, clothing, and shelter that sustains them.
And they had to work all day to get that.
Right. Interesting. Did any of them, were they able to help you at all as you were building?
Yeah.
And what were they doing to help you all?
That was part of the project. Part of people getting electricity in their homes was they had to log so many hours on the project.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the people that were able to.
Mm-hmm.
The middle-aged kids, the young men, the working class, basically.
Right.
They pulled line for us. They actually dug all the pole holes, all the anchor holes, set the poles.
Did they do that manually?
Yes.
Like with shovels and stuff?
Rock bar and shovels.
Wow.
How do you this is going to sound stupid, but how do you dig a hole that deep manually?
6 foot, yeah. Big.
I mean, that would take because we kind of take that for granted. You just take a machine over and knock it out.
Right. So you all didn't have the trucks and the diggers and the things that you had. Wow.
No, everything was by hand.
So
no kidding.
How do you? I can't even imagine how you dig a hole 6 feet deep, but keep it within the parameters to where you're going to put a pole in there.
We have them at the office too, but they're post hole diggers. You bust it up with a rock bar and pull out all the loose stuff with the post hole diggers and keep going. They got 8 and 10 foot handles on them, and
good grief,
keep working at it.
I just think of
be for me,
right? I mean, I think of a couple of fences that I've built and you hit rock, and it's like, okay, I'm done.
So you're like, my fence isn't going here; it's going to go over there,
and it's going to go on your side of the property line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I do that when I usually hit grass.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay,
or clay. In my case, it's clay. I'm looking at these pictures, and Brian, I don't know if you've shared any of these. I'm gathering you did. You're shaking your head. Yes. These people look, as you say, you pointed out here, Brad. They look very happy to me and very healthy. In fact, I think there was a shot of a close-up shot of a gentleman that I thought, number one, was a terrific photograph, and I'm just scrolling down here. But I'm looking at these people and some of them are wearing what I would call traditional dress, and there is just I think a sense of well-being that I gather from these pictures. Was that generally what you picked up when you were down there?
For sure.
And how did the kids were the kids more likely to approach you?
Yeah, they were slow to approach, but once they approached, it was, they would mingle with us, and of course we'd give them candy and toys,
well, of course,
and stuff like that, and
and
they were there to help. They wanted to see electricity in their house and school, just like the elders did.
Right. And I'm looking here. I see there's a photograph in here of what appears to be a driving rainstorm and a lineman up on a pole. Is this was shot down there, or was this something that I'm going to show you right here?
Yep. Yeah, that's actually me.
What?
We're just trying to get some yard lights hung so we can take some pictures right before the sun went down. And
no kidding.
We thought we were going to beat the rain, and didn't quite make it.
And I see you've got your climbers on there to get up that pole. So you're sort of like it's a lumberjack-esque sort of thing, right?
Something like that.
And you just crawl right up this thing, right?
Sure.
Wow, and that's one of the things you learned in lineman school.
Yep.
So when you bring the power in, how are you getting the power from somewhere else to this village?
So the other village, they had a water generation plant. They had a dam that they used to make electricity, and they had a small grid in their village, and we just tied onto that grid and brought single phase over.
And their grid's big enough to support.
Yep, they built it in mind of expanding onto the next villages.
And so one of the things, because I hear people talk about this a lot, one of the things people don't consider, and maybe you guys can explain how you did it, but so you bring power into a village like that, and you bring it into the house and all that. Well, it's not like they have outlets in every room and all that sort of thing. So how do you take it from the main power all the way down to the minute? And then what do they plug into it? Because if they've never had power, it's not like they've got 38, like a microwave sitting around that they're just ready to plug in.
So the first phase of this project was the one I went on, and we built the high line from village to village, 2.25 miles, and we strung some of the secondaries, hung 4 of the 5 transformers, and then we were able to have some extra time. We got done a little bit early, and we were able to wire their school, principal's office, a community kitchen, and some other things. And we actually took it all the way into the house, set meters, put plug-ins, light switches, lights, everything.
And you were able to bring all of that equipment with you, or the parts and the pieces that you needed.
We brought all of our tools, and of course we didn't have all the luxuries we got back here, but we had enough to get what we needed done, and the project manager had all of our material there at the village. They had it drop shipped.
Right. And how did they respond when? Obviously you mentioned they were using generators before, and some
small generators.
And some solar power.
Yep.
But was there this sort of moment of
for sure,
turning on the plaza lights for them? Yeah,
for sure. We got to spend some time with the little kids, flipping on lights in their school.
I see.
They got to see the dusted on. We hung 2 dusted ons on the main drag in the village, and they got to see them come on one night, and everybody was cheering.
Very nice.
It was good.
And you would have to, things that we take for granted, you'd have to teach them how to do, like how to change a light bulb.
Yeah,
if it went out.
Or you talked about, staying away from low power lines.
Right.
Or
the safety.
They have no idea.
They don't know.
Right.
They have no idea what that stuff can do.
And so when you went over there, do you get the light bulbs they use, are they using like LED stuff because it takes less power?
Sure.
I would assume that would pay off on a low. I mean, they probably don't have the grid power that we do over here.
Yeah, but you got to think also that these people have been burning candles and using batteries for flashlights, headlights, and that stuff. They actually said that, and I don't know who's crunching these numbers, but they're going to spend less money on their electric bill than they will on their candles, batteries, all that good stuff.
I could see that.
That makes sense.
Batteries
absolutely.
are not cheap. I know. I buy a ton of them. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so exciting to me to see something like this, and again, I think from the perspective of one who we're not a third world nation here, and in fact, we often joke about first world problems because that's mostly what we have to worry about. But by and large, we've never really had to know what it's like, to live in
right.
somewhat primitive conditions, because that's exactly what they are. I mean, again, I guess I would just hope to have seen, that sort of moment when they get excited. It sounded like the school was probably the first place where the kids could appreciate that. If something goes wrong, I'm assuming there are people down there who are trained to make repairs.
Yeah. So they're in the process, and it might be getting closer and closer. They're trying to build a cooperative like what we have over here.
Yeah.
As Platte-Clay Electric, and there were some linemen that we worked alongside. They were very green, and they're not going to do any hot work or anything like that. So if they have an issue, they just turn the whole system off, and it might take a day or two where we can repair some of our stuff in a matter of hours. It's just going to take them time, and we tried to teach them, and some of the guys were able to leave some of their climbers with them and belts and stuff, and we tried to teach them and do the best we could in the short amount of time we had.
So the bare minimum, if something goes wrong,
Sure.
Sort of like an electrician might teach a layperson, first of all, go to the junction box and shut the circuit off, or here's how you reset a circuit breaker, things of that nature, about that level.
And they knew how to run the hydro facility. They had some guys that, and it's a very basic facility, but they knew how to run that and turn it off and on, and.
But for the future, will they be able to then get more training as life goes on?
I think so. The stuff that they need to know.
Yeah. And then what are they driving down there? Are there roads do they have?
Walking, mostly walking. They've got some city transportation, and there's a handful of vehicles in both them villages, but the lineman walked from the other village every day.
No kidding.
Come up over the hill.
And how far again was that?
It's a 25-minute truck ride, but the way the crow flies, about 2.25 miles.
Yeah, not bad, but still, I don't think I walk that far to work. Do we, Jim?
Pretty treacherous terrain.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And again, what is the what business is there down there? I mean, is this farming or is it ranching?
Agriculture community, coffee. They mill lumber.
Okay.
Cut trees. Mill lumber, dry it, truck come from town and pick it up, and they'll sell it.
So clearly,
but coffee is a big deal in the village.
Right. In fact, I think I saw some pictures of coffee beans in here. There's a guy standing.
So, but how big is this village?
There's 105 structures in the village.
So it would seem to me, but from a lumber standpoint, eventually you're going to run out. I would think. I don't know how many trees they've got,
But they probably know something about the sustainability of replanting, and obviously, if that's their way of making a living, then they want to sustain.
Yeah.
And as they're clear cutting, if that's the right term,
these people are working with about $1 a day.
Isn't it
so
crazy? Yeah, just amazing.
It doesn't take them much.
No, exactly right.
I'd like to go back to $1, not earning $1 a day, but where stuff costs $1 a day.
Sure.
So, do they have a store and a?
There is.
Where do they? We take it for granted because we're like, I'm going to run up to the store and grab this, that, and the other, and you have a list.
It's hard to imagine.
Right. No, yeah, it's nothing like this. They got a handful of stores in the village that they can get the bare minimum, and then there's a town about an hour and a half truck ride away, and they can take city transportation. City transportation comes through the village, usually 2 or 3 buses a day, and they can take that to Nabaw and get basically everything.
I saw a picture of one of the stores here early on up here. Yeah, Tienda de la Bendición. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it looks unlike the stores we have around here, but I'm sure it has everything they need, certainly to sustain their lives. Well, this is just fascinating. We've got Brad Mick. He's a lineman with Platte-Clay Electric. And we're going to have Seth Henry in here, who is also a lineman, who are here to talk to us today about this amazing trip of you all going down and bringing power to this little village in Guatemala. Just a great, great story. Stay with us. You're listening to Kearney Live. We'll be right back.
Programming heard on KPGZ is being underwritten by these local businesses.
Simplify your banking, simplify your life. It's easy with Kearney Trust Company. The world has become fast-paced, and we understand that you are busy. That's why we offer a banking experience that's as simple and stress-free as can be. Kearney Trust goes beyond convenient locations and good customer care to offer banking services that make managing your finances quicker and easier than ever before. Online, bill pay, e-statements, and mobile banking are available to give you a positive banking experience so you can get back to your life and activities. Kearney Trust also provides capital to people and businesses so they can achieve their goals. Whether you know exactly what you want or just need someone to talk to about your dream, you can speak with them and work on that dream. You may just be getting off the ground or ready to move into your brick and mortar building. Kearney Trust will provide you and your business with the resources you need to succeed. Kearney Trust Company is your partner for success with 2 convenient locations in Kearney at 310 West 92 Highway and 701 Watson Drive in Price Chopper. The phone is 816-628-6666. Kearney Trust Company. Banking you can trust. Member FDIC. Simplify your banking.
And we're back on Kearney Live and dealing with what we think is just a little bit of an audio issue, but I think it's internal. If it's not, we'll find out soon. We have got the folks from Platte-Clay Electric Cooperative with us today. And visiting specifically we just had Brad Mick on the first segment with us, and we've got Seth Henry with us. Seth, welcome to the show. It's good to see you. Get right up in front of that mic, and we'll get you started here. You also are a lineman with the Platte-Clay Electric Cooperative, and I'm going to ask you the same question. How did you get started in such a career?
I had some friends that were involved in the cooperative business, and I used to work around a couple of their farms, just helping clean up. And one day, one of the gentlemen kind of brought me over and was like, hey, I can tell you like to work outdoors. I can tell you like to do physical stuff. This is maybe a career path for you. Started, giving me a little information about it. And before long, I got signed up in a line school, and then here I am.
Yeah. And how long have you been doing this?
I started at Platte-Clay in 2008.
Okay. So, yeah, doesn't time go by fast? In one sense, 2008 doesn't sound like it was that long ago, but then you start counting the years and you go, my goodness. So, well, it's just a terrific, again, I think this project is just remarkable to be able to have the experience of going to Guatemala and seeing a small village like this, and provide them with the electrical power they've not had ever before, other than a generator and some small power that would come from solar. How does that make you feel? Were you able to sort of step back from the work as you were in the middle of it, or as you finished it, and sort of assess the miracle that you brought to this village?
It really didn't probably set in until the third or fourth day in the village, and we had probably 40 to 50% of the houses. On our trip, we had strung the wire from the transformer pole to the meter, and we wired the inside of the huts up. They or I call it a hut, their home,
right? Yeah.
Received 4 lights, 2 light switches, and 2 outlets.
Yeah.
And so once we started getting everybody's power on, and they started being able to turn the switch on, see the lights, after a few days of that, and when you just sit back and, they all want to come and try to talk or interact with you, you get to see the appreciation from the villagers and, how happy they are to have it.
Yes, no doubt about it. And, we think about, running the electricity through a new home build and how the standards that we have, by which, and I'm not sure what they are now, every 12 feet or something like that, to have a receptacle or whatever it is, to imagine that they are getting, what did you say, 4
bulbs, 2 outlets, and then 2 switches.
And to them, that is such an upgrade. It's not, you can't even measure it.
And the funny thing is, a lot of them, once we had wired up houses, because we couldn't necessarily talk to them, so we'd hold the boxes up and show a light switch, or like hold the switch up and then hold an outlet up, and we'd point at the wall, and they'd kind of, point us in the direction where they wanted it. A lot of the times you came in through the front door, into the main part of the whole house, and then there was a bedroom off, usually to the side, and then the kitchen was usually detached. Well, once they kind of figured out, because we were just putting the light on the outside to the light out in the kitchen, which is a separate building, and then a light in the bedroom and a light in the main living area. Well, after the first couple of days, they figured out, no, we want the light on the front porch and light in this room together, and then we want the light in this bedroom and this light clear over in this other kitchen in a complete separate building on the same switch.
Right.
So once we'd started doing some of that, we got to experience, kind of, no, we don't want that there. We want this over here. And just kind of changing what we were doing. And, I mean, it worked good. The more input we got from the villagers, the better it was, because that way they were getting what they wanted, where they wanted.
Right.
And we talked a little bit about this with Brad, but quick. So, I mean, with kids here in the United States, we start when they're like real young talking about don't stick your fork into the outlet and all that. How do you teach these kids? Because they don't know. And I mean, I'm sure there's something metallic or something they can shove into an outlet or somehow. How do you teach them not to do that?
Well, and one of the co-ops from Missouri that went down there, they had sent down, they have like coloring books and stuff like that for kids, and a lot of it's about electrical safety, and a lot of those got handed out to the kids, and then the translators would read what the book was talking about to the kids, and it would show illustrations, and then we just kind of tried to emphasize the importance of don't grab this, don't do that. For the language barrier we had, I felt like we did a pretty good job getting the point across about what, the do's and the don'ts.
Right.
I mean, just for the lack of, being able just to sit there and tell them.
Yeah.
But, like I said, the coloring books, pretty simple. The kids are visual learners, hands-on learners in that village. They did go to school daily, but, that was how they learned best. And,
right.
So I think stuff like that, just something that simple to educate them.
Yeah, no doubt. And as we talk about the primitive conditions they had before electricity, I'm curious then about how they deal with water. I'm guessing there's no running water in these dwellings.
So the village itself has a water supply that comes from up in the top of the mountain. and it runs down so far in a big holding tank, and then as it runs out of this holding tank, it literally runs out on the ground, kind of funnels through some rocks and gets in the pipe, and it comes down the side of the mountain into the village. Most of them have just the water on the outside, and it's just gravity-fed pressure. They have it on the outside of their houses. That's where they do, all their clothes washing, cleaning up anything. It wasn't the best water supply necessarily, but they did have, we didn't drink the water. We drank bottled water.
Right.
Strict instructions,
Sure.
kind of stay clear of that kind of stuff. But one of the things, and Brad's group had done it too. They did, everybody kind of pooled some money together. So in our group, there was 8 linemen from Missouri, then 2 guys from our statewide association, and then Jim McCarty, who writes the Rural Missouri, or oversees the Rural Missouri magazine for co-op members.
Oh, yeah, great.
And so we all pitched in money, and then a couple of the guys that are coworkers and stuff had given them some money, and we gave a donation to the village. And one of the things, it was like $600 or $700 US, which to them the exchange rate's about 7 to 1. So it was a lot of money to them, but they were wanting to buy a pump to put more pressure in their system for the water, and it was about $450. So we were able, when we pulled the money together and give it to them as presented it to them when we were getting ready to leave, that was something they could take that money, and that was what, the president, because the village has like a mayor, but it still has like a president and its own structure within it too. And that was one of the first things they said, that we're going to go buy this pump with that.
Yeah. Isn't that exciting?
It is neat.
Yeah.
And then something else that we had done, we bought lumber from one of the local guys, and we built the kids a big swing set when we had a little spare time, because the kids were always wanting to come kind of see what was going on in between, if we had time, or in the evenings when we got done.
Right.
So it was real, it was a rewarding experience all the way around.
Right. No doubt about it. How did you and Brad get selected to be on this, or did you volunteer, or how did the selection process go?
You volunteer. Platte-Clay brought the idea, our manager brought it to us a few years ago. And you actually, when they open up the application process through the association, just in Missouri, when they have a project they're approved for, you fill out, how long you've been a lineman, why you want to go, what you're hoping to do. And, for me, I got to go to Hurricane Michael in 2018. So, restoring the power from that. And we were gone on that for about a little over 2 weeks.
Right.
So for me, it was kind of where I've been and I've seen when people have lost almost everything. And I thought this would be, about the same amount of time, but this is people that have never experienced it to start with.
Yes.
And, just so I put that down as one of my reasons I wanted to go.
Right.
And
exactly.
And just kind of see, exactly what all it would be like down there. And so then the state association, once you submit your application or your volunteer application, if like your co-op hasn't had anybody go, then you kind of get brought up to the top, because they want to get all the co-ops in the state involved in this program. Just like more states are starting to get involved with this now too.
Right.
And then that just comes down to, looking at experience. They would like to take guys that have some experience, and the statewide guys that go with us, they have kind of a criteria they like to try to meet with the people that are going, just so you don't have to worry about people because you're going into a situation that it's not just as easy as going to the truck and setting this up or going and getting this material. So sometimes you just have to kind of think on the fly and make stuff work, which around here wouldn't necessarily work the best. But down there,
with no grid, you're starting from square one.
So the experience, is another big key factor in deciding on who gets to go. But like I said, they know what they're looking for. They make good decisions. Working with other guys from the state, that's a good experience as well, because then you get to see ideas from what they do to what you do, and you just get to meet spend the time with them and learn about them. it's just it's a good experience all the way around.
And how long were you down there?
Our group was gone from when we left Missouri to when we got back, 16 days.
Okay, so I assume you flew out of here, and then where'd you go to from here?
The guys that were from this half of the state flew out of Kansas City to Miami. The guys from the other part of the state flew from St. Louis to Miami. And then once we were all in Miami, we flew from there to Guatemala City. Mm-hmm. And then it was, once we got landed there, we drove so far that day, stayed, and then worked on up until we got all the way to the village.
So when you say, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I was going to say, so out of your 16 days, you ate up probably 3 or 4 on each end traveling, didn't you?
It was about 2.5 days on each end traveling. Mm-hmm. The getting down there, it seemed like it was several days, but there's no fast way to go.
Right.
So
right.
The actual work days, I think they were scheduled were about 11 to 12. Depending on how we were getting along. This is the first time Missouri had seen a project to where they built the High Line and wired the entire inside of the houses. I mean, not just bringing the High Line to it. So it was a little bit of a learning curve. A few other states are starting to do it. Mm-hmm. So now that we've done it once, they'll have a little better time frame of what all is needed and the amount of time needed to accomplish a project like this again.
Right. Were you able to leave some of the materials down there, or all of the materials down there, or did you use it all up? Or
we actually ran short of a few things, mm-hmm. like the light bulbs, inside wiring, which is just a simple wire, like it kind of looks like lamp cord. The closest town, it was about 2 hours or hour and a half away. They went back and brought us another load of material, but then the excess will be used if they have any problems. So much is left there, and then so much will be kind of taken forward to the next project. Mm-hmm. There's another village from where we stopped at, about the same distance, and there's enough capacity on that generation system to build over to them and connect all those houses too. So, I mean, it's something, the material's staying down there, but it will be used either for repairs or for new builds in the future.
How many went from Platte-Clay Electric? I'm curious. How many of you all went down there?
Well, usually from a co-op, it's just one at a time.
Oh, I see. And
so, like Brad's group, there was, I think, 10 total linemen from the state, mm-hmm. but only one from Platte-Clay.
Oh, I see.
And the group I went in, there was 8 linemen from the state, and I was the only one from Platte-Clay.
Wow.
We did have a couple co-ops that had multiple guys, 2 guys go, just for the people that had put in. If the applications aren't there, then maybe 2 guys from the same co-op get to go, or a guy that has already been once would go. But they try to get other new co-ops to go, people that haven't been before. But no, certainly.
It's a unique experience.
Very.
Yeah. How were the living conditions? How did you sleep? Were you able to work hard enough that you just went right to sleep, or what?
We slept. They'd made some bunk beds and on air mattresses that usually went flat.
I think that's starting to answer the question.
The public transport was the buses they'd bring up, uh-huh. and they would come up through the mountain roads at 3:00 in the morning and be laying on their air horns, letting the village know that they were coming up there, and then you'd kind of get off the road or we get back. And so once those kind of came through, it was a little hard to go back to sleep.
Right.
I mean, we weren't going there thinking we were going to stay in the nicest places,
Yes.
But I mean, they tried to give us everything they could, to make us feel as at home as they could. It just, we take for granted some of the stuff that we have here that they just didn't have there.
Right.
And the accommodations, primitive but effective.
Well, I'm thinking one of the things that I got to have any place I am is a cup of coffee in the morning. And here you are in the land of coffee.
They sell coffee.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly.
So life would be pretty good at that point.
Did you get to, yeah. I mean, you got to sample some of the fresh coffee from down there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we did. We actually got to from one of the larger plantations. The coffee we drank, they did make it. That was, it was bottled, big jugs of water. They kept lots of coffee there for us in the mornings.
Yeah.
if the beans, like the coffee beans that the village grew, they hadn't been roasted or anything.
I see.
So when they would brew a coffee or kind of put it on their little stove, it kind of looked like dirty dishwater.
Is that right?
Now, you got offered it a lot when you were wiring in, around the kitchens, and they were trying to, thought you were thirsty. They tried to bring you something, and, you're just trying to be respectful. I can't really drink it,
Yes.
But no, we got to have that. That was one of the things with our breakfast about every morning.
And what'd you have for breakfast?
We ate a lot of plantain, which is about like, a banana. They fry them. We got that. Eggs a lot. We got bacon one day.
Bacon. Oh,
yeah. Most mornings.
Life would be good if you, as long as you have
coffee
your
and bacon.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And about every meal we had black beans with.
Including breakfast?
Including breakfast.
Yeah.
Black beans, corn tortilla, eggs, plantain.
I could see taking a tortilla, throw some eggs in there, bacon, and throw some beans in there.
I'm liking the sound of it.
That's kind of what we did.
Yeah. I could survive on that for, I don't know, an hour and a half.
We're visiting with Seth Henry. Seth is a lineman at Platte-Clay Electric Cooperative, and Seth, you were one of just a handful of local linemen that went down on this really, really cool expedition of providing electricity to a small village in Guatemala. Which, and again, I'm looking at some photographs. Who took all the pictures down there?
So Jim McCarty, that is kind of overseer, publisher of the Rural Missouri magazine.
Yeah.
He took his cameras down there. He would help too. I mean, he wasn't just down there just to take pictures. I mean, he'd set his cameras down. If you needed something, he'd get it. I mean, he's such an asset to have, not just on that trip, but, for the state to have, working on that magazine. He's exceptionally knowledgeable, and, having him down there, the kids all wanted to be able to hold the camera. He'd send his cameras up the pole on the hand line so people could take pictures, from up on the poles.
Right.
And the bad deal is, as cool as the pictures look, the pictures really don't do the countryside justice. You can't see, the depth of the valleys. I mean, we'd wake up and it'd look foggy in the mornings, but it was just like you were almost up to the clouds. Yeah. And then as it kind of rise up a little bit, you just look out across there. I mean, it was just a whole different aspect.
Right. And you can tell. Well, I guess as I look at these images, clearly he's had a camera in his hands before. These are just terrific. I mean, the shots of the people in traditional dress, but I see so many of these people that they're smiling in these pictures, and it looks like happy people.
Oh, they are. They're always not just out looking for something else. They're content. They're happy. The families are real close knit. Everybody has to pitch in. Mm-hmm. I mean, most of the houses had dirt floors, and the women would, as soon as we got done working inside there, they were sweeping. If there was any like loose dirt, it was all packed, and if there was anything loose or any debris, they swept it out. I mean, they took a lot of pride in keeping everything looking nice. And it's, like I said, it's stuff that we kind of take for granted.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they would do that every time we were in and out of there, and even if we weren't in there, like just their family was there, they'd still do it a couple times a day, just to keep it clean.
Interesting too, and I would think as lumber is one of their exports, you kind of think, why wouldn't they build a wood floor or a floor that would be up off of the dirt?
I think it's just the climate's usually there. About the same year round. I mean, a little warmer in certain times. Mm-hmm. I think they just like to use the wood. They'd have it on the ceiling, and that was about it for wood. I mean, a few houses just had wood walls, but most of them were just cinder block style.
Isn't that something?
And I think they just, export the wood so they could make money on it.
Right.
And, the house needed the bare minimum, and, anything more than that is just, getting a little fancier, and they just didn't have it.
Well, it's just such a great experience. I know we're coming up toward the end of the show here, but and we've got Seth Henry. Seth is a lineman that works with the PCEC here, Platte County. Platte-Clay Electric Cooperative. I said I was going to keep saying it, and when I said PCEC, I just kind of let it go. But I wanted to just kind of get your final, kind of your feelings from your sense of when you came back home and you were sitting on the airplane and thinking, "Wow, I'm going back to, a first world country." And what were some of the things that you were thinking of in retrospect as you look back on the experience?
Oh, I think looking back. You appreciate the smaller things more. I mean, I'm not a little guy, and most of the time, something as simple as my feet hanging off the end of the bed down there, where I actually got a bed to, sleep in.
Right.
But, looking back and just having, it was kind of a sense of accomplishment when we finished the project. But, to about everybody that goes, it's a lot more than that. It's, bringing something to people that they've never had before. And, just you're helping, our thought is we're making their lives better and we're bringing them something good. And, there's stuff, that, I missed up, I've got a little boy, I miss not seeing him.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Getting back to that kind of stuff was nice.
Yeah.
But no, it's a rewarding experience, definitely eye-opening. Some people would probably say life-changing. If you had never been anywhere or done anything kind of like that. But just to look back on it, it's such a unique experience, and it would be something I'd go on if I had the opportunity. And we're fortunate enough to go again, I would go in a heartbeat. It's just you can't describe, how the people treat you. I mean, everybody's so appreciative. You don't have anybody complaining.
Right.
We did have an outage or two, and they just bring us a note and say this house, and just go do that. But
well done. And I think you represent Platte-Clay Electric Cooperative so well, and both of you guys, Brad Mick and Seth Henry, thank you both for being with us today and sharing this really fascinating experience. I think of the humanity of Platte-Clay Electric Cooperative. It's a big power company. We talked about it. When I had you all on here before, and we just love the humanity aspect of it. So a job well done by all of you, and thanks for being with us today. Thank you very much, all of you who are listening and watching. We'll see you next week on Kearney Live, and I'm not even sure who's going to be here next week, Brian. He's laughing because he doesn't have the card up for me, but it'll be somebody interesting, I'm sure, so stay with us and join us again next week on Kearney Live. Thank you so much for being with us.